Hey there, my friend, Dan Deigan here. You know what? I want to start today's blog by giving a big shout out to Nick Redstone. A new connection I made this morning on LinkedIn. Andy Solomon and I did a podcast the other day, and Nick made a comment on the podcast. And it's really, again, it's really what sparked this conversation I'm about to have with you right now, where, we talked about what really, that drive that salespeople have. How do you sustain it? How do you build it? How do you love what you do? And Nick made a comment about something where he said, it's one thing to love what you do, but when a salesman loses that fire in his belly, loses that desire to sell, right? Whether that be facing rejection constantly, whether that be facing the year we've had in 2019, specifically in transportation, 2018, especially if you started your career in 2018, it was like, wow, is this what transportation's all about? When it really wasn't. And it was a rude awakening for a lot. A lot of trucking companies overspent. A lot of trucking companies grew thinking that, this was going to be a 5, 6, 7-year wave, where it was like a 12, 13-month wave, and it just kind of crashed, and it seemed to crash quicker than it escalated. They got in trouble. They overspent. They didn't really watch. In 2018, they weren't focused on sustainable quality growth. They were focused on the day, the spot market where everything was happening. They didn't, most companies, I've said it in a couple of other posts, I work directly with a couple of companies that locked in pricing in 2018 and they flourished in 2019. So the variables when you come to logistics and transportation and what we faced in 2019 has been pretty tremendous. But what Nick said was, when you lose that fire, it's game over. And he's right, because when we as salespeople lose that fire in our belly to keep selling, to keep being motivated, to keep sustaining it, to keep fulfilling it, and making sure our customers get these outcomes that they want, we lose, right? It's normal. It's kind of one of those, challenges that we face, because I think every salesperson goes through it, and not just in transportation. I mean, every salesperson on the planet, I believe, goes through it. So I wanted to talk to you today about kind of 3 things that I see that help me keep that fire in my belly. Right? For those of you who don't know, 25 years selling in transportation. I've been on the asset and the brokerage and warehouse. I've done everything. I've helped the company build from 23 to 162 trucks. I've built brokerage businesses from zero to millions in GP. I've been around the block, let's say. Do I believe I need to still learn? Absolutely. I think everybody, if you don't continuously learn, you're not really going to get anywhere, in my opinion, and especially if it's your career, right? Like if it's your career, you've got to do things differently than if it's just a job, right? So I want to talk to you today about kind of 3 things that I've gleaned over the years from some people that I've had the very honor to interview some of the highest sought after personal and professional speakers in the world through a company that I have called Little Conversations Today. I've been blessed to call them friends and to have them still in my life now. And some of the things that I learned from them, even though they weren't in transportation and logistics, you can apply in every aspect of your life. And the first one is really believe in what you're doing. So many of us, we don't have this confidence loop circling us. And that belief in what we're doing, and I know I said at the beginning, Andy Solomon and I were talking about that belief in what you're doing, but it really comes down to a fire in your belly. But if you don't believe that you can truly help the people you're speaking to, you almost get this feeling of being, as I like to call it, kind of being a telemarketer, right? When you really have that desire to help, and it goes beyond money. And you know what? This was one of probably the hardest things for me to grasp, and I've just recently, in full transparency, grasped it. I obviously we've got to make money. We've got to support our families. We've got to pay the bills, right? That's given. But I've recently found myself in a position where I've got one part of my business that pays the bills, and another part of my business where I just give. And I give and I give and I give, because I believe every salesperson needs that training. And companies that don't invest in the salespeople, I feel really bad for them, because they're never going to sustain that long-term growth and have, 15 Clydesdales and 2 donkeys, as opposed to they're going to have 3, 4 Clydesdales and, call it like 8 to 10 donkeys. And that's just the way companies are going. And to me, it's sad, especially in this market. We're in over $1 trillion industry. There's a lot of money in it for everyone. And if everyone just plays by the rules and does things ethically, I think it will change. But that's number one, believe in your product, believe in what you do, believe in how you do it. I think that's key. Number two, I've found over the years, as I kind of, this morning, as you can see, I didn't really even set up the studio. There's no lights. I just kind of have the overhead light on. I had to sit down and share this with you, and I had to bring it to life, what I was thinking in my head when Nick made his comment. And Nick, if you're watching this, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it. It really started that spark and that drive in me to say, okay, well, what are we going to do? And like Instagram today, all of my posts were all about that fire in your belly. So those of you that follow me on Instagram, I'm sorry, it's going to be the same message all day, but I put it in different ways. Hopefully it will connect with you and will resonate with you in some way. So number two, we're talking about, that fire in your belly. For me, it comes down to speaking to customers, calling customers that I already had and saying, why is it that you work with me? Why is it? Because we go as salespeople, we go through so many no's to get to a yes, that in economies like the one we faced in 2019, listen, we're sitting here, it is December 19th. It is, coming to the end of a very challenging soft market year. Your profit margins were challenged, not just yours. Your customers' profit margins were challenged. Like let's call a spade again, my friend. Everyone's margins were challenged. If you're like most of the people I speak with, you turn here and somebody wants this, and you turn here and somebody wants this, and you're sitting there going, where is there a piece of the pie for me? This person's cutting my throat, this person's cutting my throat, and it felt horrible. Reminded me a lot of the 2008-2009 fallout. I think 2008-2009, in my opinion, was worse. A lot of people beg to differ with me on that. So be it. But getting back to it, calling your customers. If you feel like you're losing that drive, that desire, that real fire, as Nick said, in your belly, call your customers and ask them, have the conversation with them. What made you decide to use me and why? What benefits has it brought you and your company? What could I do better to help serve you and attain the outcomes that you want? These are all key questions that we need to ask ourselves. We need to ask our clients, because that keeps the fire in us. My level right now, the fire comes from when I get emails like I did from a gentleman this morning about the HPLS live event that was put on 2 days ago. He said, Dan, he goes, I was so immersed in this customer thing, I missed it. But that replay was inspiring. It inspired me to take action today. That to me is like you calling your customer and saying, why do you work with me? And say, you know what? You're the goods. You do what we need done, and you make things happen. And when I give my freight to you, I got no worries. I can move on. See, those things inspire us, and they create that fire inside of us. I don't know if you heard the saying where it takes 5 no's to counteract 1 yes. So think about that when you're making your sales calls. Right? I don't want you to dwell on it, but think about it. Even right now, right here. Think about it. You make 50 sales calls a day. That's a lot of yeses and pats on your back to more of those sales calls. And here's the last one that I want to share with you. Make the sales call educational. And this is probably the biggest. I didn't use it as one because I really wanted to end with it, save the best for last. This was the biggest one for me, and that really changed how I thought of prospecting cold calls, how I thought of customers when they said no, and how did I continue that conversation with prospects when they said no. And number 3 is make every call educational. And I say it at the end of every single time I turn the camera on, I say it. Make every call an educational one. And how do you do that? Well, to make a call educational is, for example, you call up prospect Jim, and Jim says, you know what, Dan, I'm just not interested. I would say something to Jim like, Jim, I appreciate that. I mean, listen, we get a ton of calls every day. I get that. My bigger question for you, Jim, is what makes your president incumbent so good that you don't even want to hear what I have to say? Now, it might not be that that president incumbent is so good, but it just might be the devil they know. However, it might be that he's received 50 calls today, everyone offering the same thing, right? So let's use that as an example. Dan, I've received 50 calls today, and everybody's offering me the same thing. Everybody can do everything cheaper or everything better or provide more value. I would then ask them, okay, what would you look for if somebody called them? Right? Now I'm starting to have a conversation with him as opposed to being a sales call because I'm inquiring. I'm curious to know, and I'm genuinely curious. Like, don't do this if you're just using it as a tactic to keep the guy on the phone because in essence, our intuition will pick that up, right? Just as your intuition would pick it up. If you are watching me right now and you're going, this guy is full of shit, he has no idea what he's talking about, right? Your intuition picks that up. However, you're staring at me now and you're still listening to this after the last 5 or 10 minutes, I don't know how long it's been, because okay, he's got something. He's making sense here. And he's really in it for me. He wants to help me, which is you. And I do. So ask that question and find out, because that information is gold. I mean, that information is everything. Because if you can find out why your customer or your prospect, gets pissed off when 10 people call him, then that position, those 10, you just take this position. And you've immediately separated yourself from the crowd. So those 3 things for me were really instrumental in scaling my business astronomically. But not only scaling my business, because there's one thing to scale your business, and you can scale your business with 1 or 2 customers. That's not really a thing. For me, it was that continuous prospecting, right? That part of our journey that feels kind of mundane, it's repetitive. You're constantly calling, and especially at this nowadays, you're 35-40% connect rate if you're lucky. I just find I had more conversations with voicemails than I did people, and it really came to a point where I said, I really need to figure out how I can continue to grow my business, be happy doing it, because in the end, joy is what we're really after, right? We're after 2 outcomes in our business. A massive beneficial outcome for the customer and a lifestyle outcome for us, right? Those are really the 2 big things we're after in business. Because we help enough, Zig Ziglar said, you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. I'm paraphrasing, but same is the idea, right? So when we do that, and when we really sit down and say, okay, well, I'm going to have a conversation with everybody, and I'm going to educate myself on every call. I'm going to, have conversations with customers to really fire me up and get that oomph back in me about why I'm doing this. I'm going to love what I do. I'm going to love my product. I'm going to know what I can do for my customers is the top notch. And write all this down. Do yourself a favor. Take an hour today and write it all down. When you start writing it down and you start listening out to customers that you're going to call, start making the calls, and list out some questions you're going to ask to keep every call educational. I mean, just that mindset shift changes everything, my friends. Changes everything. Do yourself a favor and do that today. I'll let you go. Just in case we don't kind of connect or anything before Christmas, have a very Merry Christmas. I wish you and your family all the best in 2020. And go out there, make every call educational, and crush your sales. Take care, my friends.